I'm either teaching or I'm doing the work of research. I use a little chart. I stick to the basics. I don't think there's any magic in genealogical research. The work is what's critical. And now that we have the luxury, say the last 10 to 15 years, that we have more access online. People have access to a paid subscription site like Ancestry.com. The Albemarle Charlottesville Historical Society, which I'll always reference as the society, has Ancestry on the local computer in there, and it's by appointment only. JMRL also has a local computer where people can access at the branches as well as the main library, access Ancestry. Now, another thing you have, and again, that's a paid subscription unless you're in the library. There's also Familysearch. That is a free site, and that's familysearch.org. It's always going to be free. That's rooting out of Salt Lake City. Also, we have a family history center that's not open right now, but it's out by the airport for folks that are in the Charlottesville area. And there you access the records that are also in Salt Lake City. Well, JMRL is what they call an affiliate library. And the Library of Virginia just became an affiliate library with Familysearch. So that means all the little records you see on familysearch.org, if you see the little padlock on the file, if you're with an affiliate library or have access, you can it will unlock and you will be able to see more records than the average person that sees just going to the site. So want to make sure folks are aware of that. You got the Family History Center, and then you have the branches of JMRL. And also at Albemarle Historical Society, you also have the public computer that has the affiliate access to JMRL and in the library.
Shelley, I do want to point out too, currently with through JMRL on their database website, Ancestry is accessible outside of the library. So if you have your JMRL library card, all you have to do, you put in your last name, the very long digit number that starts with 21743, and you can access Ancestry from home as of right now.
That's new.
It is the post-COVID world.
Okay, I love it. I love it.
It is temporary for the moment. I'm not sure when it's going to end. But if you have your JMRL library card, take advantage of that now.
Okay. So one of the first questions that we had, and just like Miranda said, we've got folks that submitted questions, and we're going to go through as many as we can each time we hold it. Now, we've got 3 dates. We have tonight and 2 other dates that we're doing this. And I think you have the dates, and I probably have them also.
Yes, so Tuesday, November 10th at 7 p.m. and then Wednesday, December 9th, also at 7 p.m.
Got it. All right. Well, one of the first questions that came, and again, I don't see her in the chat. She might be in here by now, but I don't see her on here. But I do want to go through this real quickly. And the reason is the access to the Familysearch wiki. And I can share the page, but I want to read through her question real quick or summarize it. This lady says, she said, I am only a 2nd generation American and am having difficulty finding my family in, and I'm probably going to pronounce this incorrectly, so bear with me. And it's Stara, Stol, Austria. She said her maternal grandmother is Karpinski and Russia grandfather Brzezinski. Any suggestions? And she also has the same thing on her Italian line. So what I wanted to say about that is for folks that are not using Familysearch, one of the first things I would do is do the background and understand because of the name changes of the country during different times, is to first go learn about Austria and find out what is that going to come under. Are we looking at Poland? Are we looking at Germany? And they even talk about Prussia. And where I find that at is on the Familysearch.org wiki, W-I-K-I, which in Hawaiian is meaning fast, you know, but, and that's not Hawaiian. I don't know where they got it from, but I lived over there for a while. But again, do you want me to pull it up or can you pull it up? Do you have an account?
Do you already have it pulled up?
I think I do. Well, I logged in, so that's fine. Yeah, let me pull it up. So I just want to direct people to be able to see that source and to make sure any community, doesn't have to be another country, but any community. So I'm logged in to my own account right now, and it doesn't matter if you're logged in or not, but it's easier because if you're going to build a tree on Familysearch, which I'm going to remind everyone, if it's on Familysearch, it is a totally public tree and they have their own system. But I'm going to go over here, and if you can see my mouse here, cursor rather, and go down to the research wiki. And here it comes. And then I'm going to search. And what I'm going to search for is AUSTRIA, Austria Genealogy, Record Finder, Poland, the societies, archives, and libraries. This is key, is to know to go and see what they have, because Familysearch is worldwide. The Allen County Public Library in Fort Wayne, Indiana, is #1 for the United States records. And again, Familysearch is worldwide. So what you're going to see is all of the places where they have tapped in and they have research. So let's just go look at their, say, genealogy and see what comes up. So what it's going to give you: county information, how-to guides, everything about Austria. I do not have Austria ancestry, so I had to go look when I saw this question. And I thought, okay, well, what country was it, or did anything change just because I do other research over in Europe? So what you can see right here, it talked about Austria's landlocked, you know, it borders the Czech Republic, Germany, and things like that. So I want to send that message to the person, Daria, is to research through the wiki first, and then I would check on social media to find out if there's any Austria pages, as in a, you know, a country part or area. And if not, she should start one. And also, if she's familiar with this already, if she would contact me, I have a really good friend that is an expert on Slovenia and Slovakia folks, and has several books and does a lot of webinars and things on them, if that connects into her Austria folks. So that's what I had for her. So that would be my tips. Do you know of anything else?
Really, the Familysearch wiki, that is the go-to place if you're looking for a new area, wanting to know what resources are available.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Okay, so let's move on. Okay. And we have a couple, and you'll hear a little bit about American Indian, Native American, or just Indian, however it comes out when one of us say it. But one of the questions was, and this is going to a lady, a Miss Golden, and she said, our surname is Moon. And she's researching ancestors in Albemarle County. And again, the surname is Moon. I'm familiar personally with the Moon line because two of the trees I have in connection with the descendants on the University Project, they have Moon also in their family, and they're Albemarle. And so she says, our surname is Moon. On mom's maternal side, and our ethnicity is African-American with oral history of being Cherokee descent. I've gotten back into my research to a John and Mary Moon, parents of Moses and just Moses Moon and his 12 siblings. She said, I've got a John Moon born about 1835, and the spouse was Mary Bowles. Bowles is another very common name in Albemarle County and free people of color. And so she says that Mary's born about 1838. She's found information on ancestry. So what I'd like to say is she also has some oral history that one of these folks were enslaved. And she says she can't find anything on them. Well, without a little more dates and everything, I don't want to go, out of the left a little bit. So I'm going to go in the middle. First thing is to understand that Moon is a very common name, because also in her question, she said she finds them among Cherokee, Choctaw, and Chickasaw, and those names are on Dawes Rolls. The Dawes Rolls does cover all of the 5 civilized tribes. And again, Moon is pretty common. So one of the things is she has to do the paper research and follow where the evidence takes her. Because a lot of time we get this oral history about having Native American ancestry or the Indian princess and things like that. And I want to caution people that use the paperwork, because if your folks are part of one of the nations of the 5 civilized tribes, there's going to be documentation. And you also got to remember, if they head out, because the Trail of Tears and all the Oklahoma or Indian Territory, AKA now Oklahoma, I think it was 1907, there's other censuses and there's other documentation, and there's probably about 20 different Dawes card rows, similar type thing. So I would think they should backtrack based on what evidence they have until they actually find a little more. Because you can be on the Dawes card and be rejected into the nation of which one that your ancestors might have been part of, which is a good record when you see a rejection, because it is so full of information that can lead you to other things. And so again, I would use the online databases. One of the tricks I do when using Ancestry or Familysearch, before I even log in, if I know the collection and say it's the Dawes Rolls, I can type in the URL on, like on any page, and just put ancestry, comma, and then type the name of the collection that I know. So if I'm looking for Dawes Rolls, boom, ancestry, comma, Dawes Rolls. If I'm looking for a Virginia Friedman Bureau record, I'm going to say Virginia, ancestry, comma, Virginia Friedman Bureau records. And it's just a quick shortcut. Then you go on in, if you're already, saved password, you're going to go right to that collection on one of the sites. And if it's not Ancestry and you're doing Familysearch, you do the same thing. Familysearch, comma. Don't forget Cindy's list. And then there's other databases that are very similar that you can go right to the collection. Okay.
Shelley, you mentioned other databases, you can go right to the collection. Another question we got in this afternoon, the person wanted to know about doing Jewish ancestry and what are databases for that. And so I was going to suggest Jewishgen.org, and I can bring that one up and share that screen.
Yeah. And also go to the Family Tree Wiki too. And there's the International Jewish Society. And I think it's based out of Portland or somewhere on the West Coast. And all the resources and things that are there. And there's a nice collection at the Historical Society.
Yes.
Matter of fact, we had an exhibit about 7 months ago.
Yep, about the Jewish community here in Charlottesville.
Yes,
so what you see on your screen, this is jewishgen.org. it's actually been many years since I've used it. But I remember it being a very nice database, and you can search different research, the different databases that they have. They have a whole getting started. So that's a good website that I would recommend for looking at Jewish ancestry.
Excellent. Okay, so I'm grabbing another one. Okay, grabbing another one. And let me call off, I said Cindy's List. That's another popular website that you can go to that is full, I mean, full of resources. And not just Jewish, it's everybody, you know. And matter of fact, we should try to get her on one of these times to come sit in on a session with us, and because she's on Facebook and stuff, and
Yes.
very friendly. But anyway, so we've got another question that came in, and the question is coming from Prentice, and it says, I would like the following question answered during the virtual session. I can't find any records on my maternal great-grandparents. On my grandmother's marriage certificate, she has the name Melinda Liggins and then William Johnson as her parents. On her death certificate, she has Maggie Green and a William Johnson as the parents. Beyond these names, I have been unable to find anything on them. So is there any suggestions? This is a perfect example of a good brick wall. Well, number one clue that hits for me is the difference in the Melinda Liggins and the Maggie Green. I would find out if Mr. Johnson was married twice, number one, or was that a nickname and had she married again and her last name was Green at the time when she passed. And the other thing is to look at her death certificate and find out who the informant is. And the informant typically is going to be on the lower half. And the reason I question that, because you want to know who gave the information on the death certificate and is now calling Melinda Liggins Maggie Green. Because Maggie could just be a nickname and she married again. But you got to find where William Johnson would have passed or they divorced. Those records you can find on possibly, depending on, I don't have any dates here, but depending on when it is, you will see that on Ancestry and possibly records on Familysearch. So those are the biggest databases I know. And then any type of newspaper or newspaper.com is another resource to go to and search for death information, divorce information, besides the marriages, because if she married again, hopefully you can find another marriage record. And then if you exhaust that, you're going to have to go through every one of the children and find out what they put as their parents. And if there's a second marriage, pay attention to the birth dates to find out if they're coming from the first husband or the second husband. Anything else you want to add on that?
Yeah, well, Shelley, you mentioned newspaper databases. I'm going to share my screen quickly. A great one for Virginia is Virginia Chronicle from the Library of Virginia. And this one I found is very helpful, particularly if you are looking for African-American newspapers. The Charlottesville Daily Progress did not always cover events that happened in the African-American community, but you can find in the Richmond Planet events that happened. So I would recommend Virginia Chronicle, and then also with the Library of Congress, they have the Chronicling America series, which is kind of the larger umbrella that then the Virginia Chronicle comes under. So I would also recommend looking at those newspaper databases.
And there's another site, and also check again, and I'm going to refer back to the wiki all the time, because that will also have a list of what newspapers, when you go to the Familysearch wiki, but you also have databases out there called Genealogy Bank, and there's the Fulton History And Fulton history is out of New York, but it doesn't have just New York. And when you first pull it up, it's talking about postcards. So that's okay. Just go right on past the postcard and go in and search. Because I found some West Virginia information in the New York Fulton history database. And so it's another excellent site to go through.
Now that you mentioned it, that database is where I found some skeletons in the closet for my spouse's family.
That's awesome. Yeah, I found that years ago, and it was interesting because I kept ignoring it because I knew it was Fulton County, New York. And I thought, okay, that's not the county in New York that I'm searching. But the amount of records that they had on the site was what really got me going and saying, let's dive in there, because it's well over 1 million type, resources in there, and a lot of newspaper stuff. But I wanted to follow up. There was a second question on Prentice's inquiry. She said, it's also noted that my 4th great grandmother married an Indian named Sarah. How could I find more information on Sarah's maiden name and what tribe she is from? Well, the first thing, that if anybody is associated with a tribe, they're going to know, and they'll have that name in that association. So again, my suggestion is to backtrack, because from oral history, as a researcher, it's not my job to tell people that what they heard from great grandma or grandma is incorrect. Because maybe grandma was a child when she received the information, or maybe the person that gave it to her was also at child age. And so how it got interpreted could have been incorrectly. Or we find records now that doesn't support all of the oral history. So again, one of the tools that I use a lot is a timeline in a form. And I need to share that with you because you can put that up on JMRL's website. But a timeline, and we teach this at the Genealogy Institute that I teach at, is to keep things in chronological order. The things that you're missing just jumps out at you, or things that conflict. And it's really good when you're dealing with brick walls, because again, you're going in order. Every 10 years, we're going to have a census, should have rows and lines and things like that. And then your columns. Matter of fact, I think I have a screenshot. And while I'm pulling that up, let me see if I can bring a timeline up right quick. And that might be easier. And it's a requirement for these students that they have a timeline. And no doubt that you're not getting through the class without a timeline. So let me show you, I'll just pick one. And let me open it and see if I can share that. And it's not the blank one, I don't think. That looks like that's it. So here's one. You can make as many columns as you want, but the whole gist is to set that little goal. Be specific about the goal that you're looking. It's not a good practice to say, I want to know everything about the Murphy family. You want to break specific goals as a researcher down that's more workable, and it doesn't stress you out, okay? And so I know what I know so far. I know what I don't know, right? But now I got to realize what records or entity would know the information I'm missing. So we got date here, and this is one of the older timelines, and it doesn't have all of the columns. I made this in Word, and so I can add rows and I can add columns. So this one we're looking at now is way back in 2012, and I'm going to tell you what I've added. I've got the date, I've got the event, I've got a location. So what I did was date, event, I'm sorry, date, name, event, now, and the current one, location. So I learned as I was doing this by the brick walls. The resource and the citations, which you can click in and put a live citation in there. So all you got to do is click back and you go back to the record. My notes and questions. But what I also added on the new version is I want to know who the witness is or the informant is on whatever document. And again, you always want to try to figure out who that is and what connection that person might have with your family. My notes or questions, or so what, is a way we do it's a drill that we do, analyzing a record, and it's a so what, and I can share that if we have time. But anyway, the notes and questions is what is your brick wall, put it in as a bullet. It could also be telling you what you need to do, which could come over to your next steps, right? And telling you, now I'm going to build a research plan because my notes and questions, there's something missing. I've got to resolve the conflicts in things that don't add up. So every 10 years, you know, there's going to be census that come out. And you can see on the left, 1790, 1800. And actually, Virginia had a couple other censuses before the 1790 first one that they called the federal census. And I want to say it's 1784, 1785. But again, you can find different lists and things. So all the local history, you want to make sure that's going to be on your timeline. Everything that happened in the community or the county that your ancestors lived, you want it in chronological order. Marriages, birth, divorces, the buying and selling of land. And you can see here, Lawson is born September 7th, 1807. Where did I get that information? Now I put the live link in there because my job as a researcher is not to really have this stuff for me, but to allow someone in the family to be able to come behind me and know what I was working on. And then you can see, and this is a sample one, see where I got a question in here. What is he doing in Clark County when I know he's in Jefferson County? And the census says, you know, will show that here it comes. He's born in 1807. He's born in Loudon. 1810, the family is still in Loudon. But in 1820, they're in Jefferson County, which is now West Virginia. So that's just an example of a timeline. And probably next time we see it, you'll see me grow with the timeline strategies. But I think it's a good tool for people to keep organized too. All right.
I looked at the participant list, and we have both Tina and Susan in here this evening, and both of them had very similar.
Your audio is distorted. Check your audio.
Okay now?
Nope, you've got a sounds after your voice comes out. And I know we got a couple Susans in here.
All right, did that help it at all?
No, it's almost no. I ask someone in the chat. Can you hear it from her?
You let us know. Let us know in the chat.
Okay, somebody just posted about, is she gargling? That's the word. Okay, so I can mute myself while she's talking. That's what somebody.
All right, does that work? No.
Okay, if you put your question in the chat, I can respond to it from there. Thank you, Pam and Veronica and Susan. So let me see, maybe I can find the question. I see one. I've got a question under the Q&A while you're typing. I can go answer that if that's okay. You good with that? Okay. So there's a question by Michelle in the Q&A box. She said, how can I determine kinship for individuals I found on the Friedman Bureau bank records. I'm researching my great-great-grandfather, Isaac Harrington. I found a bank record that lists Isaac, Owen, and Andrew as brothers on Zach Harrington's bank record. I found Isaac and Andrew enlisted in the 113th USCT, which is United States Colored Troops, in Little Rock, Arkansas. They both were born in Mississippi, but I am waiting to order their pension files from NARA. NARA's not opening, guys. Sad to say. There's some emails that got sent out just in the last few days. They're not at the point to be able to open. And if you request a file from them, we don't have any indication of when you would receive it, because people are working from home. And at NARA, the record has to be physically pulled and copied and sent to you. So at this time, there's not much we can get from NARA, because I'm waiting on pension records myself. She said, how can I figure this out with the pension report? Well, the pension report is one record. So let's focus on what the Friedman Bureau records are. First, it's called the Bureau of Refugees, Freedmen, and Abandoned Lands. It's a federal document. And at the end of the Civil War, President Lincoln set up the Friedman Bureau records. So you got the bank, you got the regular records, and there's several other types of records. And we can pull that up for Virginia or whatever state it is, but they're on Familysearch. There is also a website called Mapping the Friedman Bureau Records. And there's an S on one of the words, and I always forget it, and it automatically comes up. So I'm going to say just put Mapping the Friedman Bureau Records. And what that is, that site can take you to the state, and then it's mapped out in the state where the field offices are. So the field offices are where the military is going to be there, and they're going to have certain reports they do, information that they collect. The type of records that are, and I'm not just going to say the bank records, I'm giving you all of Friedman Bureau. So you also want to check there. So you've got refugees, which are white people. Don't skip this record set, researchers. Unless you tell me all your ancestors were rich, you need to check this record set. It is 1865 to 1872. The offices are set up right after the war. People went to the Friedman Bureau records. They went to the bank to open up accounts. They went to the field offices for transportation money. Maybe they're going because their family was sold, to another location, another state. They could go, and if they're old, blind, indigent, crippled, they could go get rations. There's also, after they became free, there's a record set called labor contracts, and where the slaves, the people that were enslaved, now are going to do a labor contract, possibly with a former owner or someone else, and they will get paid. There's also complaint files in there, letters and reports. So that's a basic overview. So, and it doesn't have to be just African-American, because people see that there is, Friedman, and they think that's a black record set. Well, there's no such thing as a black record set. Let's make sure we got that clear. That is a source that you've got for white and newly freed slaves in. Treasure trove of information. Treasure trove. So again, for the bank records and any record out of the Friedman Bureau record, you're going to have to build yourself, I'm going to say, a little arsenal of supporting documentation, because if they don't list out the relationship, you're going to have to build that with other records. I would go into the regular outside of the bank records and also look for a labor contract and things like that that could help support who this is in a household and also jump to 1870 and find out, okay, in the census, you're going to have surnames now, which I'm not saying African Americans or formerly enslaved did not have surnames. Some did and some didn't. But you want to go and get supporting information from 1870 to help you work back through anything that happened during 1865 and 1872. Okay? So that's a brief thing. And I know Kay, who is on here, I'm going to set up a separate Zoom and we are going to walk through Friedman Bureau records because that was Kay's, and I know she's in the chat. That was her question. And matter of fact, on Friday at 7 p.m., I've got an open Zoom on the Finding the Enslaved Laborers. At UVA, we have a Zoom just specifically on Friedman Bureau records that everybody that comes, we're walking through and we're all doing research, talking and having fun. Okay, how are you doing, Miranda? Yes. 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 Mm-hmm. Ooh. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Got it. Mm-hmm. 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 And I also see where you're showing the one on the ship passenger list, 1538 to 1825, that's at the ACHS reading room. Okay, great. Come in. And right, go ahead. Yes. And also right under there, following up, because I think I saw another question. Don't move too fast. Right there is another thing that's in the Friedman Bureau that I didn't mention is the cohabitation list. And so you can see that it's listed there in Louisa Historical Society and also Albemarle, Charlottesville. And of course, we're on JMRL's site. But every county typically will have a registry of free Negroes or a cohabitation list. And if you don't find them there, go to the Library of Virginia. And another good record source is to also look for chancery records, and that's at the Library of Virginia. So what happens, and I'm going to say this, and so y'all forgive me for how I'm going to say this. If you got two white folks that are disagreeing and we got a lawsuit type thing going on, and maybe it has to do with property during slave time, your enslaved individuals are property. They're not considered, I'm going to say it this way, human, right? So they're going to be wherever there's property discussions. So that's why you always want to check chancery records. And that could be any state, but I'm more familiar with the states I research, and Virginia is one. So you can put the surnames in, and when they pull up, you will see who's listed in it first by first names or last names or surnames. And if there's slaves included in that, right, it's going to say enslaved. It's going to be listed. Another gold mine and great resource. Okay. So Do you want me to pull another one? Was there something that came up in the chat room? Okay. And Kay did respond. She said, I'm not finding, another thing in the Friedman barrel is there's no magic, like I said in the beginning. So when you go into, say, Albemarle County, Fluvanna, Louisa, you're going to see how many rows there are, right? And then you're going to pick a row, and it might, be maybe a 50 images, 200 images. Oh, maybe there's 1,200 images. Your goal is to go through every one of those images. Now, they are indexed within the database, and it doesn't always kind of fit. That's why you need to really look at each image, okay? So again, Kay, this Friday, 7 o'clock, you can join in, go to the Facebook page, Finding Enslaved Laborers at UVA. The link for the Zoom is in there. And it is open to anyone to come in. And we just work right through it, and who's ever there is helping whoever is there. So it's just all of us, but the concentration is to stay with the Friedman Bureau of Records. And again, it doesn't matter if you're white or black, because that's a record set with everybody in it. Okay. Boom. Ooh, I didn't see Earl Smith. Is he in the chat? Okay, let me go look and see his question. I'm in that, so let me find where that's at. I see Miranda. Oh, while I'm scrolling through here looking for Earl, I am at the shores of Scotland right now, Aberdeen, Scotland, doing personal research there. And I just missed the British Institute, which there was 3 or 4 sessions just on doing Scottish research. So whoever's looking for the Scottish research, you hang with me, because I'm learning it right now, and tracking the Henry family out of Frederick County, Virginia, and Hanover, Virginia, because they both have roots, the Henrys, to Aberdeenshire, Scotland. And so I'm at the shores right now. Plus, I'm the biggest fan of Outlander. And so, yeah, I'm serious. But again, I found out that some of the folks from Aberdeenshire fought in the Battle of Culloden, which was a big thing in the Outlander series. So the historical aspects of that are actual real things that come from the books and into the story. So I am still not seeing, Susan made a comment though, in there. She said, Susan asked about the Albemarle County marriages. There's a fantastic index. There's 3 volumes that list bride, grooms, and ministers. And these lead to marriage bonds that are available on Familysearch.org. Thank you. Okay, let's see. I am still not seeing Earl. Well, I'm still looking I must be looking. Oh, all right. I got Catherine. If you got another record set until I can get to Earl, was it recent or from the first few days? I have them in order. Okay, if you want to just read it, we can go from there, because I'm just digging through here and I have them in order. Okay, let me give you a resource. and I'm going to share my screen. First, let me open it up. And I'm jumping a little bit ahead here, but I'm just going to give you a free research. And because number one, you know, the Daughters of the American Revolution and also the Sons of the American Revolution. Now, what they don't have is in their database, you cannot tell what the race is. But what I want to show you is a really good resource, and this is called The Forgotten Patriots, African-American and American Indian Patriots in the Revolutionary War. This was a project that DAR took on back in 2008. There is a team of folks that did this research and were pulling together. Now, there's 6,000 plus, and I'm going to call them people of color, POC, that are involved in this. So until you read it, you won't know if it's an American Indian or if it's an African American. But what I want to show you, and to make sure, now it's a PDF, you had to buy the book first. I have the hardcover book, and I think it's also in the Albemarle Charlottesville Historical Society, because if it's not, I'm going to make sure they get one. And so, but anyway, so look at the table of contents. And again, we're focused on people of color, American Indian and African American. And there could be other folks in there also, people of color. But you can look through the states and you can see them. And I'm going to show you a record. And of course, 481 is Virginia. So what I'm going to do is put, let me put Goins in here. But wait a minute, there's going to be too many. Let me go down to the page 481. I'm actually working on a book on the African-American Patriots. What page did I get to? Am I at 450? Not quite yet. On the Central Virginia Patriots of color. And so looking at Charlottesville, the counties all surrounding, like Planning District 10, the ones that are in that area know what I'm talking about. Albemarle, Fluvanna, Louisa, Nelson, Greene, Buckingham, and I might include Orange because I'm seeing connections. Okay, so here is, I'm almost there, it's the 480s. And so what I did was take each of the counties and I came in to the book. So we should be in Virginia right now, just as an example. So you got African-American, Negro, enslaved man of Edward Vayner. Right there is a gold mine. I've got the slave owner. Not all of them are going to be that way. Got the slave owner who got compensated for the Negro providing the service. So apparently he rented that person did service. So he's recognized as providing a service during the Revolutionary War, and he is from Chesterfield County. What that means is the descendants of the enslaved person, which there's no name, but if you search Edward Vayner, you might be able to find out which one of the enslaved people he had that served those 6 days and provided a service during the war. So let's look at another one. Here is, I want to get one that has their name on it. Let's see. Okay, here's American Indian also. I'm sorry, it's 15 male Negroes and 2 female Negroes. They don't have names, but you have to research the Chickahominy shipyard in Richmond and find out who got sent. And again, I'm after the descendants, just like the descendants of the enslaved laborers that built UVA. There was up to 4,000 Negro enslaved individuals, men and women, that were rented from the area plantation And they built that university. And as most of you know, those buildings are still standing. So I'm trying to think, I was trying to look for, here's a Louisa one. Okay, so we got somebody that's mixed descent. And I know this family, they connect to my family. The Allstocks and the Goins connect in Louisa. There's a marriage. But anyway, we're talking about mixed descent, freeborn mulatto. So that's somebody that's probably going to be a light skin. They're mixed, probably black and white, which it might also be Indian also. And you got that term mulatto. They're coming out of Louisa County, and all these little terms are references to books, dissertations, articles, some other things that have support evidence about Absalom Allstock. And it's telling you he was in Louisa County and he was also in Rockbridge. And then here's a outgoing, and they don't have a resident, but he deserted from Dragon or Dragoon. Okay, but just as an example, so here's a resource, and they missed a lot. This is what they got access to, and it took them a few years to do that, but they missed a lot because I've already acquired, and right here, I've got the watermen's names because another researcher out of Richmond, her ancestry is in Buckingham, and she had to list from an article or some book that was published, and she gave me name of watermen that worked on the James River and that also went in and provided a service to during the Revolutionary War. So another gold mine, the dar.org website, or even S as in Sam for Sons of the American Revolution, they have a public view that you can see if you're not a member, and but you can order files, because everything is past some of the privacy law. So the first 4 generations you might not see on a file because those people might be still living, great grandmothers or something in certain families, but you could get a gist and follow line. So if I could think of the 4 enslaved individuals that TJ, aka Thomas Jefferson, I call him TJ, he sent 4 of the Hemmings, or no, I'm sorry, 2 of the Hemmings and Hughes, I think it's 4 of them, and they had carried the surname of Jefferson. So we've got the information from there. I can connect also with the Getting Word Project at Monticello. They can go through the ledgers in the day book and also connect back. So now we'd go find the descendants and say, hey, you have just as much right as any of the white Patriot descendants to be part of this organization. So there's a lot of opportunities to research during the Revolutionary War, but I would hit all the blogs and all the sites, Rev War Talk, the DAR, the lineage societies, to be able to acquire those things. And also the Native American or American Indians are also in that Forgotten Patriot book, and it's free. It's a PDF, 874 pages. Then you're not getting the, there's a update version. You go for the 874, then go get the revised, because they added another 1,000 names or whatever it was. It's amazing information. All of it. So doing African American research, you got to understand, because of the law and that enslaved individuals did not create the records, they're not the holders of the records. So African Americans are not going to be able to do some of their research if their ancestors were enslaved without trying to get a hold of the slaveholders' information. So work together. If you've got names of who your ancestor enslaved, one of the questions I would ask is if you're willing to share that information like you're expressing. And there are websites, Beyond Kin is one, and you've got places at the county historical societies that you can share that information. You can reach out on Facebook. There's a lot of Facebook pages where is certain counties and looking for the enslaved, relatives and our ancestors, vice versa, where you can share that information. There's a national African-American Historical and Genealogical Society, and it's called Afro-American, started in the 70s. And that's a national organization, and it's the oldest. It is absolutely the oldest in the country from 1977. And you can share that information with a chapter that's wherever that plantation was at or your ancestors. Find that local genealogy group to share. Familysearch is another contact that you can share that information. The Library of Virginia, and I'm just giving that as an example. Folks can donate any of that information in and set up a file on them. And again, I think social media is really key right now, because that's where I have finding those enslaved laborers at UVA. And I'm also researching the white families, the plantation owners, the enslaved families, whatever you want to call it. If they're willing to share that information, I want that information, because that might be the key of me finding out if the enslaved individual took the surname of the slave owner. 9 times out of 10, they did not. That's a big myth out there. And don't assume just because I got Murphy, that was from the Murphy slaveholder. It was not. And again, you have to reach out wherever it's at. And if you have any problems with that, contact me, because I'll put you in touch with an OGS group or a genealogy group from places that I know. There is also a website called APG. It's Association of Professional Genealogists. Go in and look at the genealogists that say they're experts in this field, in this state, in this, that, and other. That's another contact to be able to share information. They might not be researching that family, but they research that county and they're an expert on that county. And that's another places to find where that information can be held, besides NARA and other places like that. Not being able to access a death certificate. So I'm gonna put my teacher hat on. You're in class right now, Deborah. I said Deborah Kirby. So my thing there is, like when I do the timeline, I don't have a death certificate. This is another little chart thing. I don't know if I shared that with you. There's one at the Historical Society. But if I'm looking for a birth date or a birthplace, there could be other records I can find that. So if the state is not releasing birth records, the first thing you do is you're going to look for any other vital records, birth, death, marriage, to be able to acquire birth information, church records, census records. And if you're not finding anything there, you're going to have to hit the newspapers, newspaper.com, Genealogy Bank, the 2 sites Miranda shared earlier, and also hit the courthouse and see if there's other information, because any of the vital records also have what they call delayed record. And if you don't ask, you're not going to get it. You have to say, do you have any delayed birth records or delayed death records or even delayed marriage records? And what that means is, back in the day, I'm going to say it that way, back in the day, certain times, say the baby's born during the winter, The doctor doesn't get to the courthouse to get it filed or recorded until spring. I'm going to say like Michigan, for example. And so that would be considered a delayed record. So it's not in the box where the regular ones that are timely, it's going to be in a separate box. That's at libraries, archives. You have to ask. Find an archivist and become friends with them wherever they're at, because they're going to know what record sets they have in what boxes. And your historical societies typically, we have a card file, if it's still there. I've been out a few months. The card file, and there's a lot of birth and obits that are in the old-fashioned card file. And think about, before the internet, that card file is what we had at our disposal to go into the libraries and places like that. That was our Google to pull that drawer open and go through there. So I don't know where it's at right now, because I know you're there. Don't break my heart. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. I was going to say, Tom. Let's go call Tom. Yeah. Right. Newspaper, Daily Progress newspaper. Mhm. Yeah. I would like you to take a picture of that, because I'm going to use that on slides, because that is how you research. It is. It is. Classic. Okay. When did she die and where, Alice? Thank you, Tom. I see that. Tom is the executive director of the Albemarle Charlottesville Historical Society. Because I was going to be devastated and just move right off the screen if they would have moved that card catalog. Okay, 1889. And where? What's the location? What state? And you're looking for a death certificate, correct? Did she say death or birth in death? So have you located a marriage record? Or do you have the parents or their children? Well, let's say, let's put it this way, because we don't see the response to keep going, because we're getting a little bit on your time here. Yeah. And so one of the things, if you cannot find a death, and I think you said birth and death, correct? Just death. Okay. So she dies in 1889. So I know she's not, well, you think she's not. Number one, did you find her in the 1900 census? Okay. She should be in the 1880 census somewhere. Hopefully, they don't have the name of Mary Smith or something like that, that you'd be able to find her. But start working around from her children and work backwards, and see if she's going to show up as the parents on any of their records. Because if you have children and can access their vital records, typically the parents are going to be listed somewhere. And when you're using Ancestry, Cindy's List, Familysearch, and other databases, and if you have a location, go right to the local resources, public library, historical society, and work just finding the surname and finding her maiden name if you have that information. Because if you don't have a death certificate, number one, I'm going to say, oh, well, they probably didn't die in a place where they lived, because your death record has nothing to do about where you lived. Wherever you died is where that record is created. And then you want to find out if there's anything in a newspaper, find an obit or anything like that, and find out. She said, okay, yes, she is in the 1880 census, and they can't find her either. Okay, if she is in the 1880 census, whose household is she in? And who are the neighbors around her? And are there any more of the same people in the whole county with that surname? And find out if there's other connections. Find out if where the church is at. One of the big things I do is follow the money, follow the land, follow the water, follow the community and stay local, and find the faith of the people. That is your grounding, your foundation to any genealogical research, that you should be able to pull something. And if you can't find them, again, anybody go in the military, do they have a pension file or anything like that? So if you're looking for a death date, you want vital records, probate records, church records, look for obituary, newspapers, Bible records, and also you want military records, as I mentioned, and work your way back, because maybe it's one of the children, or if that person married, you're going to go for the husband's family and keep her following along, and also who else is in that community. And we call that going local. Work through there. Don't jump out of any boxes and go down other things, and find out if she's in, say, like if she died in the city of Charlottesville, but you know she didn't live there, then you want to hop around to every one of the counties that's around Charlottesville, Albemarle, and find out if that surname and relatives are also there. Okay. Ooh, I do. Okay. Well, number one, I would hit the Library of Virginia. I would also hit Encyclopedia of Virginia, and that's a website. And Google's your friend, and that's why we know it's a female that set that up, because all you got to do is ask a question. Okay, so you want to, if you know the name of the hospital, you want to also check state records and find out what was the requirement for these type hospitals or institutions. What were their requirements? Where, if the hospital is not open now, where are the records at? So you're going to have to hit places at the local level, call the public library, the Stanton City Library, and talk to the librarian, or go on their website and email and to ask the librarian and say, where can I find information, or do you have the information, you know, and stuff. And I see where she's saying, I've done all that. Okay. I want you to do that again. And I don't know how long it is, because I want you to look at the information and find out what it might connect to. This is that so what we do at the Institute, and it's drills. You take a document and you basically, you're questioning the information on the document. So say you've got, go back to Alice's situation, and say she has a death certificate. You want to go through each one of those cells, and you're thinking to yourself, well, so what? I've got this information. So what? I got her mother's name. I already know about the mother. I already know her maiden name. But have you researched the mother's family? And what if that mother was deceased? And also, is the middle name, could it really be a maiden name, or is it a middle name? So that's going to open up a whole bunch more record sets. So also look at, and I want to say his name is King Davis, and I think he's out of Texas. And he did and I'm not thinking a full name, but his name is King Davis, and he did the asylum institution. It's somewhere in Virginia, and I'm not looking at the email or the name of that. And he did a presentation in Richmond on it a couple years ago. And look at what he did, um, on that project research, and it was a state asylum for lunatics, this, that, and the other, like Kathy K. Slaughter is saying. And see what he did in the research. And his was, I think, called Central something state. I can't remember. It's been a while ago. But his name is, I want to say King Davis. He lives in Texas, but it's in Virginia. And I think it was in Richmond, maybe, or it's not the Stanton. Who's asking that question? Christy. Email me so I can find that information, and or email Miranda library. Oh, okay. Email her so she can send that to me, and I can send a link. And I would like you to look at what he did and was able to uncover, and see what you can do to mimic some of what his research. That's why it's good to use the those annual magazines that come out from Historical Society. Albemarle has one. You know, every historical society will publish something, and they've been doing it for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. So you want to tap in and find out if there's any articles. Tap into the library's university special collections features. You got your Library of Virginia, which is also your state archives. If it's, you said it was in Stanton, and see if that shows up in any of their search records. And again, don't forget any lawsuits or any criminal type records that might link to something, to an institution. And again, I will find, oh, you found it. Okay, you don't have to email, but it is King Davis. And yes, he just got a reward, but he's out of the University of Texas. Which hospital was? Central State Hospital. Was that out of Richmond, right? I think it's out of Richmond. But he did it for several years. There's even a database type thing that he was researching the information and find out. And he's open to email if people have questions. But he did a presentation in 2015 at an AAGS conference, and it was fascinating. And he had a whole table booth and everything set up on the records, and how it wasn't exposing them, but if you've never seen these type records at an asylum or institute, they were just fascinating. Okay, and some of them are going to have to be at the next session because we got so many. Yeah, good. Okay. Okay. Okay, great. What state is she looking at? Please say California. No, I'm just kidding. What state? Okay, so you're trying to determine the paternity, or say the father. Well, number one, the first thing that comes to mind, and I'll put a flag up for caution, is DNA. And so if there's descendants, okay, what county in Pennsylvania? just by chance, just asking. You must be in the Q&A because I don't see it in the chat. Okay. Okay, so and the only reason I say what county is because I researched Franklin County and the ones around there, where Chambersburg is at. But anyway, first thing I think of is DNA. Now, you have to be able to understand that you're going to have to first connect and determine that the man that raised him was not his biological father. So if there's children of the marriage that are younger than the person you're looking for, 9 times out of 10, they might be the person that raised him's biological children. So if they're okay, you got to get permission and you need to go on and buy the test, wait for a sale to come up, get them at the $59, and you've got several options. 23andMe, Ancestry DNA, which has the largest database, then 23andMe, and then probably Family Tree DNA. Ancestry and 23andMe would be the two I would probably recommend because they have a larger database. And of course, Ancestry is the largest, and they're probably up to 20 million by now. Last time I heard it was over 15 million. So the chances of connecting with DNA probably would be on Ancestry DNA. So anyway, you're going to have to test to work through this. Another side of me says, get with a person that does DNA. You hire them and work through it. If you're not, if you're not that confident on it. And the other thing is there could be mistakes. So in the records are not always telling the truth. So it could have been a situation that the mother of this child had that child before they were married. Nowadays, it's not an uncommon thing, but it was very quiet back in certain time eras. And where now it's not, not at all. Women even choose to have children and not being married. Fine. But you're going to have to go back and also search that community, because if you go the DNA route, you got to know what's coming back at you. So you got to know who's around. And Elizabeth Shown Mills says you got to check the fan. Use the fan principle. Friends, associates, and neighbors. And you're going to check the public trees that are also, if say you use Ancestry, because once you throw that out and that person gives you permission and you got that tree set up, because you can set up a tree just on finding that parent. Krista Cowan from Ancestry, and you can Google this. She's also called the Barefoot Genealogist, and look for her topics on DNA. And when you don't know, about paternity and things like that, she's going to walk you through how to set up trees with unknown names. Like you got one name and you're searching back. So you're building the community there. So if that's not the biological child, somebody is going to be around that is going to link, or you're going to find another link. It's going to cost you and it's going to take some time. So again, depending on how much you want to dive into this, because I want to put a caution out before we end on DNA, recognize that there is an emotional side of that, and that people are finding that things come back, siblings aren't siblings, parents might not be parents, or one parent might not be parents. And sometimes there's some very bad things that come out of DNA that people didn't know before, and a lot of resentment. So you want to make sure it's clear on whoever you're dealing with that might be linked to the bio dad or not, that this is the purposes of why you're doing that. And also, it shouldn't change anything if that's your cousin or whatever it is. But the ups and downs on the DNA, and now all of a sudden I'm not blood related, but wait a minute. Adoptees sometimes go through the same thing. And I get a lot of inquiries on my personal line I'm looking for my mother, my bio mother and father. And it's like, for me as a mom, it's like, oh my God, you know, how can you grow up not knowing, you know, type thing. You go through all of this. And we were able to resolve that and find her biological mother. Thank you for the state of California, because you know what? The adoptee records are online for a certain time area, and she fell in the time area. Her name was the same on her adoption papers as it was on her birth certificate, which had bio mama's middle name, not her first name and surname. We were able to connect it, but her name had never changed since her birth. And we were able to match it up to a name on a birth record in California. So just be cautious going that route. Be clear. Get their permission if you're going to search for that bio person. And you want to either, if you're for sure you're biologically connected, then it's going to be comparing to you or somebody in your family. Okay, I'm just throwing a caution out there. uh, uh, a lady contacted me that was a first cousin, and she would have been a niece of a first cousin. Well, first thing I went to is my brothers and said, is there some children out there y'all are not telling us about? And there was an era using GEDmatch, and I contacted GEDmatch. This woman went several years thinking she was connected to our family, and my oldest brother was a family member of hers, and all their trees and everything was built. There was one number off on the kit that she got versus the kit I had of my brothers. And so we contacted GEDmatch, and again, common mistake, but I felt bad because they went years building this tree. They're connected on this Murphy line, all of this stuff. And it was very emotional. And I had to go back to her and say, we don't connect. We're not the family. I'm so sorry, you know, but let's backtrack through there. And then we walked through it. But again, and then I never heard another word from her once she got verification that there was a mistake. So again, walk cautiously. It's a beautiful thing for a lot of people, but it's a sad thing for other people using DNA. I love it, but I'm very cautious using it. So is there anything else before we go? That was a lot. That was a lot. That was a lot, and I enjoyed it. That's yeah. But it's been fun. It's fun. Thank you. And again, looking forward to seeing the folks we didn't get the answer. Don't worry, we got your question. I actually printed off every one of the questions, you know, so we can do some research. And there was another Revolutionary War question, and again, we'll hit some of that next week on the 10th. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Thanks. Have a good one, Miranda, and thank you. I'm not quite ready. I'm gonna go to the Library of Virginia first. I'm going, and I hope Tom's not listening, but I'm going to the Library of Virginia first because they're open up by appointment only also. But I've got, I think Albemarle Charlottesville Historical Society is the only one open. I had checked with all the other ones and they're not open yet. and by appointment only. And for the work I do for my job, I need all of those, you know. And the goal is using the social media, and I'm getting great feedback, and also from slaveholder families. This is what I have. Yeah, I start putting it out on Twitter and just saying, if you're a descendant of this person and willing to share information, you know, please contact me. And yeah, yeah, I've got 20 some inquiry that came back and said, yeah, my ancestors had slaves in Louisa, or this, that, and the other. So it's coming, and it's wonderful, because that helps us to help get that memorial and be able to recognize those enslaved laborers. So very much appreciated if anybody is thinking of that. Thank you. All righty. Thank you. Bye-bye.